Okay, so welcome everybody to another episode of Bones and Stones. We're very excited today to have Canelo with us from the Maropeng Visitor Center. Canelo is a former WITS PhD graduate, and that's where we met. And she's now the curator of the visitor centers for the Sterkfontein and Maropeng in the Cradle of Humankind. So we thought we'd have Kenny on today to talk a little bit about her, roots in archaeology. We've had a couple of Bones and Stones sessions in the past where we've looked at career paths in archaeology, and we touch on how some of our roots in archaeology have been very non-linear, and it seems like it's been the case for you as well. So Kenny, perhaps tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us how you've ended up in this exciting curatorship position.
Oh, hi guys, thanks for having me. And don't you think it's cute how Lotta says my name? Like, please say it again.
Canelo.
So yes, I'm Carole, and I am the new curator at the Maropeng and Sterkfontein Visitor Center. I'm primarily an archaeologist. I graduated from the University of Pretoria, like Takkies for life, bro. I got my undergrad and honors degree from Takkies. And then I found myself on a plane to York in England to study my master's in bioarchaeology. That kind of happened purely by luck. I wrote fan mail to Professor Joe Fletcher, who studied mummies, and I was really interested in human remains. And my honors project was on the Makapansgat massacre or siege. So I studied the human remains from that aspect. And then that got me on a plane to England to study my master's in bioarch. Did that for a year, came back to South Africa, sat around twiddling my thumbs, not quite sure what I was going to do with my new degree. And then I landed up on another plane to Cape Town, where I got into underwater archaeology, where I learned how to scuba dive and excavate shipwrecks on the coast of Cape Town. And then I got headhunted again a couple of years later to become a junior lecturer at WITS, which is where I met Matt. And then I did this whole lecturing gig, as well as a PhD in biological anthropology, which is more skeletons. Then I had a nervous breakdown during the PhD process, as you do, because PhD is so stressful.
We all did, don't worry. It comes to the territory.
Yeah. I had a nervous breakdown. I took a year off. But in that year, I started caving, and I got involved in the Rising Star project. So I'd be excavating with Lee Berger's team at Rising Star, which was a great experience for me. And then somewhere a couple of months later, I applied for this curator post that opened up at Maropeng. And I mean, it was just a total shot in the dark. I didn't know if I would, get it, because I had no experience whatsoever. I've been doing so many things, Iron Age archaeology, human remains, underwater archaeology. I didn't have any museum experience, but I got the job, and here I am as the new curator. So that's my journey.
Very exciting. Okay. And I mean, how's the kind of transition, how's the position been so far? We spoke for a few minutes before we got the chat going. How's it been so far in terms of your daily responsibilities, daily kind of tasks? We spoke about the fact that you're not being allowed to get outdoors much in terms of your work environment.
Yeah, look, it's a different ball game altogether. It's quite a senior position, so it's a lot of admin and organizing things, collaborating with other stakeholders like WITS University and other institutes like the National Museum in Kenya, because they're also like the cradle of humankind, right? So we're building those networks together. So it's a lot of admin and paperwork. I mean, I'd really like to go outside or into a pool just for like 5 minutes, but no, you gotta like make the things happen. So it's been really interesting. I'm learning a lot of patience with myself and everyone that I work with, but it's all fun.
Okay. And Tim, I'm going to hand over to you. You got a question?
Yeah, I actually have two questions. The first question is,
Okay.
with your experience in underwater archaeology, my question is, if you become an underwater archaeologist, is your career sinking? And then my second question is, how was it working on Lee Berger's team and doing all that caving? It looked like a lot of fun.
Okay. Underwater archaeology is basically just archaeology underwater, okay? So, I mean, it's the same responsibilities and the same risks that you get above ground, except this time you can drown or eaten by a shark. You know, I mean, when I worked on Clifton Beach, I was like one of the smallest people on the team. So as we were excavating the shipwreck, on the surface, what you'd see on the beach is like a tiny little swell go over, but underneath it's like we're in a washing machine. I would like tumble halfway through to the shoreline and have to swim back.
Yeah.
So it's quite intense, but you have to market yourself as an underwater archaeologist to get the jobs.
Okay.
You know, and the whole caving experience at Rising Star, it was fun. It was loads of fun, but my legs looked.
Do we still? Can you hear us? I think we lost Kenny there, guys. I don't know. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, let's give it a few minutes. Maybe she'll come back. That's really interesting, though. I mean, underwater archaeology is a lot of people want to explore that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
She's got some crazy stories.
Kenny's back. Okay, we lost you momentarily.
You did. Oh my God.
You just started talking about your experiences on Rising Star.
Yes.
Oh yeah, great fun. My legs were scarred for life. Like I've never had so many bruises on my legs. Like you could connect the dots and try to spot my skin tone in between all of that. But it was super fun. I was like pumping through with adrenaline all the time. My mom got to a point where she's like, please don't show me anything anymore. Just like make sure you don't die. That's it.
That's all that matters to me. Yeah.
It's been an incredible experience. And I mean, you know, to work within the Cradle is such a privilege. I know obviously Matt Caruana is very much involved in the Cradle as well. Carrie, you've got a question for Kenny?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting about the sort of non-linearity of your route into this position, and that's really useful information to people starting up or thinking about starting up careers in archaeology. And curatorship is obviously a very highly sought after position around the world. So first of all, congratulations. We're happy to see you employed in a full-time position and doing something you think is really valuable and cool. But could you give us an insight? What are the favorite parts of your job and what are the least favorite parts of your job for people who might think this to be their sort of end goal for a degree in archaeology?
Nice.
The favorite part of my job is that, I get to drive to a World Heritage Site every day, and that's my office. That's like amazing. And I also get to see like really cool things like, fossils, and sometimes a couple of snakes on the property, even though I check them out from a distance. But, it's stuff that normal people don't get to see in the office. I also work with a really great team of guides, and we're always joking and laughing about, and I learn a lot about the Cradle from them, because I don't have that background in paleoanthropology, or that extensive background in paleoanthropology. Like I said, I'm an archaeologist and I specialize in the Iron Age communities. So I learn every day. So that's like the really nice bits. A lot of my mornings, I start off by walking through the exhibition spaces to make sure everything's working. And my least favorite aspect, I must say, have been the meetings. Like having to sit through meetings almost every second to third day, planning, even though it's necessary. But I really want to be outside and taking people on tours, because I would sometimes do that. I'd give like special curator tours, and you get a sneak peek into the parts of the museum that people don't often get to see. Yeah.
Okay. Tim, you've got a question for Kenny?
Yeah, just based on literally what you just ended off on there. We've spoken a bit about archaeology and our sort of and presenting our archaeology to the public, and I thought that's something that you get to do. That's something you're very much a part of. So, just briefly, I mean, how important is it for us to take the research we're doing, the science that we're doing, and then present that to the public in a way that they can understand and enjoy?
I think it's very important. I mean, this is science communication, and it's the new thing, the new hip hop thing that's happening right now in the sciences. And it's quite important to be able to take what we do and just to condense it and repackage it in a way that is interesting and understandable to other people, because then what's the point of us doing the research that we do if we're only going to be speaking to each other? I mean, I love your faces, but nah. You know, I need to see other people. I need to speak to other people. So it's very interesting learning a whole new language. I like to say that with skeletal studies, I've learned to speak the language of bones. And now with science, we're learning to speak the language of popular media. Okay. So having to use social media platforms to get through our message. And that's pretty fun. You know, you have TikTok, you have Instagram, you have Twitter, and it forces you to condense everything in a very creative way. And that's been really fun.
Awesome. Yeah. No, awesome.
So I think that's also one of the reasons why we started Bones and Stones as well, is to, you know, kind of promote dissemination of information. For sure. You know, at a level that a lot of people can have access to. Just one more question to end on, Kenny, because we're just coming up on time now. A yes/no question. I was going to ask it before I handed over to Tim, but then I forgot, so I quickly handed over to Tim. With your PhD, completing your PhD, do you think you needed to complete your PhD for your curatorship? Was it a requirement? And do you think you could have possibly gotten the position without your PhD? We always talk about this, whether a PhD is actually needed. So yes, no.
No, you don't need a PhD for this position. You don't need a PhD for any position. I think what you really need is a passion. You just need a real passion for this thing that you're doing. And yes, this guy's PhD kicked my butt so much. It was.
You can do that, yeah.
That's what happens. Yeah, I think it definitely ages us all. That's for sure. But Kenny, I think we'll wrap things up there. Thanks very much for your time today. We really do appreciate it. It was great to chat about you know, your path in archaeology, hear a little bit about your daily routines, and what it's like to have a curatorship position, which is absolutely fantastic. So, as Carole said, congrats on the position. Yeah, awesome. We're very happy for you.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. And yeah, we look forward to maybe hosting you again sometime in the future. Yeah. We can chat about maybe a couple of other issues. And yeah, but thanks very much.
Cool, guys. Next time we do it underwater.
Please, that'd be awesome.